with the mission to keep as many men on as many guns for as long as possible. We called him Doc. Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. And now your host, Aaron Chief Siebert.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Hey, this is Combat Vet Vision. This is basically where I come on, I talk about myself, I talk about my life, I talk about things that we're dealing with in life through the combat vets' ears, eyes, our lives. And then I have my guests on here that tell their stories too. These stories are our opinions, our life, and everything in between. There's a lot of shows out there. You want to know if the truth is out there. This is it. This is the raw stuff. This is, and some of it's even held back because we have our own self filters on. But hey, I have Mike Alford on with me today, and retired Navy chief, good buddy of mine, and mentor. He actually pinned Chief on me, and that was quite a cool story that I've never told on this show or anywhere else. And we'll get into that maybe a little bit. But Mike, welcome to the show, man. Thanks a lot
brother,
for being
thanks.
here.
It's glad to be on.
Yeah. So you're doing the emergency director kind of job of Temecula, California at this time.
Yes, actually, I'm the first trained city emergency manager for the city of Temecula. It's a relatively new position. Used to be before today, they had contracted emergency management services with Riverside County, but decided that they wanted to move on and become more self-sufficient. So they created a position. And luckily enough, I was very blessed to get that position. It was not an easy task, a very, a very difficult interview. Went up against 10 other people from around the country, but I guess being the hometown person and studying about where you're going is definitely a good thing.
Nice. We'll come back to this too, because, I know, we served together, and, we both went to combat. You go back to that time, you're a corpsman. Talk about your experience there. Who'd you go with? What unit? What kind of stuff did you do?
Well, for me, it actually goes all the way back to 1990. After Desert Storm, I was pushed through field med school and graduated May of 1991. And, with Desert Storm happening at that time, we were all kind of getting ready to go over and do things. And we were the first class that was a dual class. So there was two sets of students in at one time with the intention of us going over. We all had orders. We all had units. I was supposed to go over with BSSG 7. And then, the 120-hour air war took care of that, and we didn't get to go.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so that was like getting you all geared up and ready to go, and then they just pulled the plug out. But, it's okay. I was new to it. I'd only been in at that time for a year, so I wasn't exactly looking for a war myself. It was supposed to be about going to school, getting an education, serving my country, and that was about it. Little did I know that time would only tell that we would be in the longest war we've had in a long time.
Right. And talk about that. When that kicked off, where were you at and what unit? In 2001.
Well, in 2001, when it first happened, I was actually in between commands. I had just left the National Naval Medical Center in Bethesda. I left there on the 6th of July in 2001 and was on PCS orders to 1st Marine Division. So I got an opportunity to come back home. So I came back to the green side at Pendleton. I got back here and checked into my unit, which was 1st Battalion, 4th Marines. And that was on August 25th. September 11th happened, and everything changed. We were already planning on going on the 13th MEU. We were supposed to leave in February. But instead, after 9/11, we ended up leaving 2 weeks after that happened. The CO of the battalion came by, put everybody out on the grinder in a big formation and said, well, I got good news and I got bad news. The bad news is we're going to leave. And it's 2 weeks from today. The good news is You got 10 days of basket leave. Go home. We came back, we packed up, and we were gone. And that ended up being from September until April of the following year. So we ended up doing a 9-month cruise.
Oh, yeah.
We were able to support the 15th MEU with the establishment of Camp Rhino. And we were doing some forward air refueling stuff and providing assistance to them, because they're the ones that went in and went up north and actually rescued some of the Army 47 Chinooks, or what are they, 47s that went down. We were the only ones that were there to be able to support them. So it was the first time that we had actually done long haul operations from the sea into Pakistan, and then from Pakistan all the way up into northern Afghanistan in order to rescue the Army.
Wow. So you were on a 9-month deployment for that.
Yep. And then when we got home, it was 6 months to the day that I was attached to 1st LAR and sent into Iraq in 2003 for the initial push.
Yep. And you were part of RCT 5?
RCT 5, we were at a Camp Coyote.
Yep. And so you remember we were going to have our dinner that night, and they canceled it because we left early. They were cooking all these steaks and everything, and we were going to have this great meal.
Oh, it was supposed to be the first big meal we'd had.
Yeah. And
it wasn't out of a bag.
Right. And then they're like, no, we're leaving like right now. And so we just all left, and all those steaks, I just had to remember, like, hey man, that steak's just way back there now.
I know.
And we were cruising across the desert at that point to cruise to the line of departure. Yeah, I remember.
Well, to be honest, I honestly thought that they were lying to us, because I can remember that night I was laying on the plywood floor of the hooch that we were in, and I remember the company commander coming up and kicking me in the feet and telling me to get my ass up. And I just laid there. I'm like, whatever. I mean, it's 11 o'clock at night. Why do I need to be awake? Come back by and he kicked me again. He said, Doc, if I got to wake you up one more time. And I'm like, sir, what the hell are you kicking me for? Why do I need to get up? He said, because it's time to go. I said, it's time to go. He said, it's time to go. And that was it. We packed up our trash. We left everything there, and we headed out for the LD, for the border, and spent the night.
Yep.
And then that's when all the artillery started coming in, and we got up first thing the next morning about 03, and it was time to start crossing the line. And then it went on for weeks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Weeks of no sleep. Weeks of no change in your clothes, and you know how smelly you can get.
Oh yeah.
Well, I remember the first baby wipe bath that I had, standing in the middle of Highway 1 while everybody was cruising by going into Baghdad. And that had been, what was it, 45 days before we got to break mop gear?
Yeah, one thing I could say
something
about
like that. It was quite a while, because I remember that my first actual shower was at 45 days, and it was actually the camp that we set up outside of Tikrit when we went all the way up north looking for Saddam.
Right. I remember thinking to myself in this mop gear, and my mop gear was like too big for me. And I mean, the legs were all taped up. But I remember thinking to myself, I was like, it's a good thing I got this mop gear on, because I don't have to smell myself.
Right. At least the charcoal did some wonders for itself until you did take it off, and then it was a little funky.
Yeah, it was.
But
crazy.
then your legs were black, your arms were black, because they told you not to wear your gear underneath it, just PT shorts.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up all these memories, man, like that. And it triggers mine too. But things that I kind of maybe don't necessarily take a breath about, but it's pretty awesome to hear you talk about it. So so after all that, and talk about it, man, a little bit, if you don't mind getting into some of the nitty gritty of it all. Traveling up there, the real life scenario of things. And this is the part where war doesn't always fit into society. Like it's all like this weird dream thing, and you come back and you're like, where does this even plug into real life? And sometimes it's really hard to kind of focus on that.
It is. I mean, I've been, August 31st, I've been retired now for 9 years. And it hasn't always been easy. After I came back the second time from Iraq in 07, because I was over there the first time. Then I went in 06, and then I was there again in 07, and we came back, and that kind of changed things for me a little bit. And it was in the sense that as a corpsman, that's what you're supposed to do. But I didn't feel like I had the fight in me anymore because I was tired of seeing all of these Marines just either killed or completely maimed beyond recognition. And it got really old. And it got old really fast. And then you start to become irritated, and everything you see and all the things that you smell bring all of that stuff back. If you remember, it was in February around Valentine's Day in 07 when we lost one bird from the purple foxes out of Camp Pendleton. And it happened to be actually a really bad day for us at Fallujah Surgical because that bird went down, and it took all of our the mortuary affairs detachment. It took every single one of them because it was a right seat, left seat flight. So it wasn't just your typical crew. It was twice the size. So when they went out to recover it, they left one guy behind. And of course, that one person just has to come up and tell you that, hey, I just thought I'd let you know, Chief, I'm the only guy left behind. And, I'm not too comfortable about things. Well, I sure hope nothing happens. And of course, you don't say that. Because that day leading up until the time they got back that night, we unfortunately had lost 12 Marines that day in multiple different engagements, firefights, IEDs. And, being the chief, you have to know what all of your sailors and your Marines are doing. So I made it a point to go around and see what everybody did. And because of the nature of what mortuary affairs did, it wasn't an easy task for those guys. So we tried to provide help where we could and when we could. So I kind of learned the process. And I was able to help that guy out that day in processing those 12 bodies. So that way, when the others got back, they didn't have to worry about the extra work. But that was probably one of the hardest days because I personally ended up having to identify the bodies of the two corpsmen that were on that plane. So between, it was, an HM3 Manuel Ruiz and then HM2 Minjarez, I remember everything like it was yesterday. And those are the things that your normal everyday citizen doesn't see, the things that they can't fathom or even imagine. But yet all it takes is one little smell and it brings the whole thing back. All it takes is bringing that day back on the calendar and you'll never forget it. The days that those things happen, the days that your brothers and sisters took their lives, will never be anything that the normal everyday citizen can deal with. I think it takes somebody special to be in the military because we're one of a very few percentage of the overall population.
Yeah, less than 1%, I think.
And then here we are having to rehash these things and talk with our mental health professionals. And I don't always know that I want to do that. Have they experienced anything similar to what I'm going through? Do they know?
Yeah, I think we might have lost Mike on this, but for right now, yeah, what he's going after is that.
So
I think we lost you for a second, and you were basically talking
possible
about how we talking to a mental health professional that has not been there, done that. It doesn't always feel good to want to share that.
No, because then they keep wanting to dig into things that you don't really want to talk about.
Yeah.
So
Plus, I think
I've
I
learned
kind
to
of.
try and find the positive now
Oh
in
yeah,
what I do.
and
Because
you've done a lot of
when I
positive, brother.
graduated high school, 4 days later I was in the Navy. I might have been drunk for 4.
Uh, hopefully, we'll get him back. Yeah,
Are we back again?
we're back. Yeah. So four
Well,
days you might have been drunk. All right.
right. But then that's all I've known is the military. So when I retired in 2012, 8 days after retiring, it was either live with unemployment because of the recession or it was take a job. And I wanted to take time off because I just spent 22 years active duty and I wanted some time off. And the guy said, "Well, I'm giving you a job. Do you want time off or you want a job?"
Yeah,
So I went to work,
and
but it
what
was as
job
a
did you take?
contractor for the Marine Corps.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
there I am back serving again. It was different because I worked with some other first responders, and we didn't work, or we didn't. Our office spaces weren't on base; it was out in town, so it was a little bit different. But yet, at the same time, we were working with the military, so it almost felt like home. Then I had another opportunity, and I became the emergency manager for the new naval hospital. And I thought I needed to go back there again. Well, lo and behold, come to find out, I didn't really feel like I was part of that team. Even as a retiree, I became one of those things where you're a DOD civilian. I don't care what you did before. So you're just going to get treated like any other civilian. And that's exactly what it felt like. So after 30 years, I finally gave up that and went to work for a local city. And working for a local city, it's completely different. And I honestly thought I would have a hard time. It's actually been a lot better because I almost feel like I'm part of a team again, as opposed to being a DOD civilian where you're one of thousands that nobody really cares about. So the transition has actually been really good in that respect, because I think I've learned over the last 9 years that it's okay to get away from the military in that respect, because it's not the same as it was when you and I were in. It's different. But see, we've built these relationships so we still have each other. And those are the things that matter.
Yeah, that's so often the truth, man. And I think back, all the ties that I have to people in my life that has mattered, um, to the military, to who I think I am, who I thought I was, who I am. And you know, it's awesome to know you, to know that you were my mentor. And you're a mentor because I just happen to know you because Wounded Warrior Battalion West got built, and I was able to meet you through, you were working at the PMT, running that whole show, and you had a lot of advice from me, man, all the time, coming through and helping me manage Wounded Warrior Battalion West and all the different things with that, and with Chief Fisher, um, and you guys made that happen, man. You've taken chances, you've rolled the dice. Um, there's some really cool things, man. It's strange, the life that you have, um, and then you get to see, and you get your battle buddies, and you get to talk and have a really cool conversation with them sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. But it's those things that you do for people that you see promise in, those that that can really kick ass, take names, and do the job. And when you look back at, you remember who we used to call the Godfathers.
Yes,
Their
yes,
vision was nothing of the future. They had this poster child thing in there that everybody had to look at or look like. But those were the ones that weren't always cutting the mustard. Yeah, you had to
correct.
take a chance on a couple of big boys, and You know, that's probably one of the reasons why I never made senior chief, is because I don't kiss anybody's ass. And, you know, and by doing what we did for you, that's what mattered. Might have been one of the reasons I never made senior, but I don't really care. I got to see you, you know, live and grow and do other things. And man, you've been so unbelievably successful with what you're doing now, especially for vets. You can't beat it. It's all about being given an opportunity.
It is.
Instead
And it
of
has been.
stifling your shipmates and just giving them what they need. You got to be hard on them, and they've got to earn that, and they've got to do the right stuff. And when then you see them grow, that's what's amazing. I mean, look at it now. I can remember many seasons that we went through where we put on anchors on some really good individuals, and they became really good chiefs. And then look at them now. They're outstanding master chiefs. I remember I didn't do it, but I was there, you know, when Craig Hodges got his anchors put on, retired at 30 years, badass master chief. You've got Pat Mangarin doing that. Tootie just retired.
Yes.
I mean, all of these people that came in after me, and then getting to see them where they're at is awesome. And then getting to talk to them and listen to what they've been through with the rest of their careers, I'll love to hear the stories.
Oh yeah. It is. So this part of the conversation, talking about chief stuff, and you know, being a chief in the Navy is there's a super pride to it, and you really don't know how the door opens until you pick up and you put a chief anchor on, because you realize there's certain people you can talk to, and you don't have all the answers, but you have all the people that do have the answers. And you know, I went through the Chiefs Academy with you. You guided me through a lot of it, and you know, this whole thing that Mike's talking about, being a chief, being a senior chief, the chief's master chief, it's a huge deal, and it's a very prideful thing. And I'm thankful for you for bringing this up. You know, a lot of people won't understand this part either, but you talk about the master chiefs that are serving now and the ones that you've seen come through the ranks. I mean, you know them as HNs or HAs.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about it, when you're a chief and you're looking at this kid going, you were 3 years old when I joined the Navy. And
Right.
now here we are having coffee together. Here I am retired 10 years later, and they're putting anchors and stars on. It's good to see that.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it makes you feel like you had a little bit to do with their success. Because, you know,
Right.
many people touch them, and we're only a little part of that. And you just hope that when they worked for you, you imparted a little bit of wisdom that helped them along the way, that maybe they remember that, and that's helped them get to where they are.
Yeah, that's a true statement. That's good. So you've gone through a couple struggles too, though. You've had to deal with you know, obviously the transition of jobs. I remember you were in a place, kind of a rough place for a while, but you're doing good now. And talk a little bit about some rough patches for you, and what that was when you transitioned from,
Well,
you know, being the contractor to being what you're doing now.
after retiring, I went to work for the Marine Corps as a contractor, working for a company called the Canberra Corporation. And after I first retired, you know, the first year or so was kind of okay. And then I started getting to a point where I wasn't quite sure where I fit in. And that's when, for me, my PTSD really started to come to light. And I was getting angry with things, and I really had a huge bout of depression. Took about a year before my wife finally took matters into her own hands. And that's when she started pulling medications away from me. I guess they had me so medicated that I was just looking at, this is what I had to do, this is what I had to take, and I was almost like a robot. It got to the point where I wasn't sleeping. My mind wasn't functioning the way it was supposed to be. I would drive to work asleep. I would sleep in my office at work, and then I'd be asleep when I drove home. And I did this for months. And one day we were sitting at the dinner table, and I started telling her how I started feeling better. I was sleeping better. And she just sat over there and shook her head, and she's like, mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, so what are you not telling me? Well, 3 months before that, she had started taking me off of some of the medications that I was on. And by doing that slowly and incrementally, I started feeling better. I was happy about things. I was interested about going out and doing things and started to live my life again. But come to find out, I ended up getting in a drag out pissing contest with her because I had the thought that you don't mess with my meds. You mess with my meds, it's going to screw me up. And then I get screwed up and then shit's going to happen. Well, it ended up working out for the better. And I'm actually, instead of taking, it was up to like 19 to 21 pills a day, down to 7. And I've been this way now for several years, and I couldn't be happier. And granted, I've still got some weight issues, but I'm also retired and I don't really care right now. But I've started to feel better about things. And to be honest, as I've pulled away, I think, from the active duty stuff and stayed away from the military and just stayed around my friends, it's actually started feeling really good to be out because I kind of feel like I'm alive a little bit more.
Nice. So you've surrounded yourself with a really good supportive network.
I have, and all of that, to be honest with you, starts with my wife. But then I've got people like you. I've got my family. I've got my friends, other chiefs and stuff that I reach out to and talk to that we go out and we have beers with. We go and we have breakfast on Wednesday mornings. Those kinds of things. It's the old man breakfast. We do it in Old Town Temecula, 7 o'clock on Wednesday mornings at the Swing Inn, and we go and we have breakfast. We shoot the shit. We talk about family. We talk about the kids and how they're all doing and just how everyone else is doing. Because I remember my grandfather used to do that stuff with some of his old vet buddies when my brother and I were kids, except it was at Bob's Big Boy.
Nice. Yeah, and those group settings are super important. You just never know. It's a good time to do a buddy check in those, and whatever comes up. Obviously, talking about family and friends and your life, and it's good to have that kind of network for sure.
It is, and being a corpsman has been my entire adult life. That's all I've ever known. Right. And after my last tour in Afghanistan, where I did 380 days, went to 250 plus ramp ceremonies, I gave up on medicine because back in 2004, when the first fires hit California, I just happened to be the LPO of the PrevMed group at Pendleton, and got involved into helping the public health director at the hospital with passing out N95 masks and stuff like that to help out the first responders. So that was my introduction to emergency management. So I thought that was cool. I had a bachelor's degree in healthcare admin, and I didn't want to do admin, but it was a degree, so I had it. Then the fires hit again in 2007, and I played a bigger role in that because at that time I actually got sent to the Installation Emergency Operations Center as a liaison between the base and the hospital. So I got immersed a little bit more into the field, and it really started bringing the interest to me. So when that happened, I decided I was going to go back to school and change my focus from dealing with healthcare, and I went into emergency management. So I have a master's degree in emergency management with a sub-focus in terrorism. And then my undergrad, as I said before, is in healthcare admin.
Wow.
But that gave me a purpose because I actually learned from a very, very smart boss that I had at the time that said, you have to have 2 plans. You have to have a plan to stay in, and you have to have a plan to get out. because you never know what tomorrow's going to bring.
That's right. And everyone's
So he
getting
goes,
out
what happens if you
sometime.
go home and you're on your way home in your automobile accident and you become paralyzed below the waist? You can't be active duty military because you can't walk. So what are you going to do? You still have kids and a family. So I thought about that, and that's when I decided it was time to go to school. And I'm glad I did, because it set me up for success in the future. And, you know, it's not like going to college right out of high school. This was, you know, I'd already been in for 10 years to get the ball rolling, but now it had a means to an end. So it was about my
Nice.
family and about my kids and giving them more than what I had. Because you always want to give your family more than what you had. If you can do that, then that's a good mark of success.
Nice. Well, it's good to see you doing so much better now. I mean, it's great that you're loving your life too, and especially, you know, in retirement and having a cool job at that.
Oh, yeah. Retirement is amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Because I can choose to come and go as I please now and do what I want when I want.
Oh yeah.
I can stay employed or I can quit. It's my choice. That's the best part about it.
That's good. Yeah, and I love it too, man. I ain't gonna lie. You know, being retired gives you a lot of doors. Allows us to have a little bit more freedom. It allows us to be a little more picky,
It
and
does.
yeah, it gives us the ability to. Uh, I don't even know what it's like really to be retired. I feel like I'm just doing the same thing I did at Wounded Warrior Battalion West, which is taking care of combat vets. But it's great.
But
It's
it's
what I
on
love.
your terms.
It's on my terms, and the paperwork's so much less. Because
Absolutely.
I'm not a counselor. I just play one in real life.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a peer-to-peer mentor.
There
It's
you go.
great. I get to care. That's what it is. It's just like being a corpsman, man. I just love being but the burnout happened too. You know, you get burned out from maybe Navy medicine for so long, but doing it on my terms and this way is just way better. And you know, thanks to Brian Colburn for hooking me up with this and doing sitchradio.com and saying, hey man, why don't you do a podcast? So now I get to tell your story, my story, all kinds of other stories. And, you know, somewhere it's going to educate the public. It's going to help a combat vet or whatever. And it may even help you. I mean, telling your story, I know it may trigger some stuff, and I hope I didn't trigger too much, but maybe you won't
I
sleep.
think I'll be all right.
Maybe you won't sleep too good tonight, but tomorrow night you'll sleep a little better because you processed it. But I think you've been processing it long enough. But it's awesome to have you here, man. If is there anything else you'd like to say? Um, any other words of wisdom, brother?
The only other word of wisdom I can say is, you know, life continues when you get out, but make sure you're prepared to get out. Things can be positive, things can happen. You just almost have to will it. If you want it bad enough, you can make it happen.
Nice.
You know, and if anybody ever wants to get a hold of me or talk to me about that, because I think I transitioned pretty well, at least from the active duty military to being a successful emergency manager in a local. I have my own city that I run in terms of that. So it's my own city's program. If anybody's interested, you know, they can always reach out.
Yeah, and you can find Mike through me if anybody's needing to get a hold of anybody. I definitely appreciate having you on my show, brother, and it's an honor to know you, to have had you as my friend for this long, and I just want you to know you're on my mind if I don't talk to you in a long period of time. But
oh, I know, it's always the same. We reach out and touch each other as often as we can.
yeah, but thanks a lot, brother.
My pleasure. It's great talking to you.
All right. Hey, this is Aaron Siebert, retired Navy chief, lucky to be alive after being hit with a mortar round. You know, I'm able to talk to some of my buddies on here. I'm able to talk about myself, my stories, their incredible wisdom, whatever that is. And, you know, hopefully it helps somebody out. And hopefully it gives you just a little insight as to what we're going through, what we're dealing with, and how we're dealing in life now. It's not always doom and gloom. There's always silver lining, and some of us live in that silver lining. So stay motivated. Until next time, hey, this is Aaron Siebert signing off. Strength and honor.